Welcome to episode 95 of the BCF ORG podcast, The Business of Business. I'm Brian Fisher. In the previous episode, 94, our guest was Loretta Terrazzotti discussing executive communication. This podcast series is targeted to business owners and C-suite executives. It reflects my 34 years as a business owner and subsequent years as a business mentor and consultant. It focuses on the various subjects and topics to help you run a successful, profitable business. They're approximately 15 minutes long, so you can listen while commuting. Hopefully, you'll find one or two takeaways to implement per episode. Today's episode discusses Building Your Future with Jason Yarusi. Based out of Murfreesboro, Tennessee, as a business owner, keynote speaker, and coach, Jason Yarusi has the ability to seamlessly blend his personal experiences with actionable insights. He transforms complex concepts into practical takeaways, equipping you with the tools you need to conquer your own journey to success. Jason is a private fund manager of over $300 million in commercial real estate. Since 2017, his company, Yarusi Holdings, has amassed over 3,000 apartment and commercial real estate units. Jason has built and exited multiple companies, construction, restaurants, a brewery, and multiple large apartment communities. He's an avid ultra-runner and workout enthusiast. Jason is the host of Live 100 and the Multifamily Live podcast, and most importantly, a husband and father of 3 amazing kids. Jason brings all of his hands-on experience to you. His personal story and extensive work have made him an inspirational force, captivating audiences as a dynamic motivational speaker. With an innate ability to ignite positive transformations, Jason empowers individuals to conquer challenges and embrace change with unwavering resilience. His electrifying talks instilled a renewed sense of purpose, propelling audiences to reach new heights in both personal and professional spheres. Let's welcome Jason Yarusi. Jason, welcome to the BCF ORG podcast, The Business of Business.
Thanks, Brian. Excited to be here.
Thanks for joining us today, Jason. Jason, I'm always interested in people's stories. What's your background in becoming the managing member at Yarusi Holdings?
Pretty nonlinear path. We talked a little bit offline. And, I went to Lehigh University for college and got a finance degree. And after school, I thought the most logical step with a finance degree was go to be a bartender in New York City. And so that was a bunch of steps. We talked a little bit about just, limiting beliefs is that I constantly didn't think I was qualified to do things, right? To go outside and just step outside of it. So I started working in bars and restaurants until one day coming back late at night on my bike about 2, 3 in the morning, just upset at the world for just not getting any results because I was just doing the same thing. I got hit by a car on my bike. And I woke up that next morning after going to the hospital, having a pin put in my wrist, other things happened in that part, in a cast. And all I could think about it was like, man, I have to make rent and go back to this job that I don't want to be at. And I looked myself in the mirror and said, listen, if you keep doing these chaotic things, you're going to get chaotic results. And that's the only thing you can continue to say right now is that you're doing these things, you're getting results that you don't want. So fine, if we keep at it, I can't be mad at anybody else, it's myself. And I started at that point telling myself I'm going to make small changes. Didn't happen overnight, but I went from, working in bars to opening a bar, a restaurant, opened and sold a brewery. And then Hurricane Sandy happened on the East Coast. And my dad had a very small construction company that dealt with lifting and moving homes. And so very unique business that he was lifting and moving homes. He had done it for almost 40 years, coming on 50, he just retired. And his business would do about 10 projects a year, very unique. And I went out in New York City to help Dad because of all the storm work, and we moved that business from 10 projects a year to 250 projects a year. Very unique projects. However, it constantly was one of these things that was very time intensive. We weren't really able to step Dad out of the business, and we kept looking for other ways to find our time back and be able to control the narrative of our future. Led me into real estate, which we started to do house flips. A lot of people will watch them on TV. And again, we didn't find the satisfaction with that. And one day, my wife met someone who was investing in projects out of state. At that time, we were in New Jersey, and that model spoke to me. It was a way that I could really empower forward a project, put teams together, and manage the overall success of the project without actually being there doing the physical aspects of that, from anything of collecting rent to fixing units. Sold everything we had in terms of the flip projects and went all in to learn about large apartment investing. And in 2017, we purchased a building that was 94 units in Louisville, Kentucky. And that was the first of about 30 plus transactions we've done today. We've brought about 300 million of real estate in 8 states.
That's a great story, Jason. This episode's topic is building your future. How do you guide individuals in identifying and overcoming their limiting habits?
Biggest thing for us to do is to be self-aware of what we're actually doing. Most of the time we get stuck in a rotation where we get stuck in comfort. And if you think about, just how you wake up in a day, right? You're going to wake up and do the same thing. Maybe you get up, first thing you do is grab your phone, or the first thing you do is go, wash your face, or the first thing you do is go brush your teeth, or when you get in the shower, you get in the shower, you turn the water a certain way, maybe you wash your hair a certain way, or get in a car, you drive the same way. So we get stuck in very comfortable patterns. And it's comfortable to stay in those comfortable patterns, even if they're not producing us results that we want in our life, because it's easier to keep to what we know than stepping outside of that with the risk of what is the unknown. And so for us to identify, right now, if we have a lot of anger in our life, or we have a lot of hatred or disgust or just envy or other things that are just not fruitful, for us to identify those so we can stop pointing the finger outwards and start taking onus for where we are. And when I find you can do that, you could start to turn the narrative around to own it, and then understand what are the awareness actions or results or things that I need to be if I want to be able to go forward and seek the success that I deserve to have.
Jason, we tend to get wrapped up in the now. How do you help individuals stay disciplined and focused on their goals?
It is very easy to see other people's goals. We go on Instagram or listen to these other things, and we see everybody else's goals, and we assume that goal, because they're doing it, should be our goal. And we forget to really look back at what we want. And so what gets washed over is we don't get results because it doesn't have a true meaning to us, right? There's nothing that really is inherent to us, or that this doesn't mean anything to me because I've just picked someone else's goals. So when I do find something that's beneficial for me, maybe it's to have better relationships, maybe it's to, get in shape, or maybe it's to, buy a house or something of that magnitude, something that has meaning to me. It's not the goal that we spend all of our time on, it's the journey. And when we can get back to this, that the goal is going to come and go. Most of the time in life, we think about a goal as if I do this, then everything's going to be perfect. So when I lose 30 pounds, like, life doesn't stop. Or when I make $1 million, like, life doesn't stop. But we think about it as an event that life stops. And so we forget to set our sights that we're going to spend all this time on the journey of making the money or losing the weight. So who am I going to be along that journey? What steps do I need to take? And when we can do that, we can start learning about the first step. And that's the most important step. The reason people don't usually get to their goals is because they don't even take a first step, because they're so scared of what could be and what could be the path and how hard it's going to be. Instead of just saying, well, if I take the first step, what's going to happen? Well, either 3 things. I take the first step, it's absolutely the wrong direction. And you go, okay, that was horrible. Don't do that again. And at least you learn something not to do that again, and you can move in a different direction. Or number 2, you take a step and it's kind of somewhere in the right direction, but it's not perfectly right. And then you pivot to get yourself closer to a route that will get you there. Or the third step is, oh, that's actually getting me closer to my goal. Okay, cool. So take the next step. And we do those 3 steps and you will gain some traction. But most don't take any steps. And then what happens? Well, inaction gets you no action, which gets you no results. And so if we can just learn that it's the first step that matters more than the actual goal, that first step leads you down the path, because many times on the journey to our goals change. I'm sure you've had goals before. You start out on a goal and you start doing 10, 20, 30 steps down the road. And all of a sudden you're like, okay, I'm kind of on the right direction, but this is actually a better goal for me just by doing the action. But we get so set in having to have a perfect roadmap for where we go that perfect usually is a term, perfectionist is a term for just never getting started.
Like you mentioned earlier, we tend to live in our comfort zone, and taking that first step is usually pretty scary.
What I could say to that is that we've all had very scary days in our past, right? And some more in our future. But if I was to say 5 years ago, pick the thing that scared you most, right? About you taking a step. You probably can't even think of it because now it's become a speed bump. At the time, it seemed like you were climbing Mount Everest, but now it's a speed bump. And usually we treat our steps, right, our action points, as if we're stepping off a 10-story building when we're typically just stepping off the curb. So when you can put yourself in a clear mind, just say, why am I taking this step? Well, I'm taking this step because right now I don't have money in my bank account. I'm not having great relationships with my wife or my kids, or, I'm not in shape, or, I don't have the job I want, or I'm just not fulfilled in my life ahead. Well, okay. So is it better to just stay here, or should I take a step and just see if it can get better? And if you think about it in that way, it can be really clear. Like, what do you have to lose? You go take a step, and if it doesn't work, okay, then let's try another step.
We're speaking with Jason Yarusi, managing member at Yarusi Holdings. Jason, can you talk about your podcast a little bit, The Live 100?
I talked back about some of the failures I made. And until I realized that you don't break your habits, you pivot your habits. And I was having a lot of bad habits in my life. And until I started to pivot them to some better habits. And when I did that, magically, it started compounding. And what we forget is that we all want to improve by 100% over the course of a year. And what will happen is we'll wait for these big times to be able to do these grand events, but we just never get those big times. We're all too busy. But if you do 1% of improvement each and every day, just 1%, right? And you compound that 1% over the course of a year, that's 3,800% of improvement. And I found as part of my journey is that I had to pivot my habits that were not serving me to start building momentum to really get to the success that I've had today. And I've used that to build into the Live 100 model. So I started the Live 100 podcast and program to help empower other people so they could have principles that they can use to build a foundation to get them out of where they are to where they want to be.
Well, Jason, what lessons learned or results have you seen with individuals that have implemented your recommendations?
I've seen people change their destiny by forgetting what they used to love and now bringing it back into their life. And so people get set into bad jobs, and it's not the place they want to be, but they don't have the confidence because their mind is setting them back. And so by coming here, working with me, they're able to really rediscover what empowered them as a child or what empowered them in their youth, and to go back to take steps to either pick up things that now improve their life by their hobbies or other things that just help them just be more fulfilled with where their life sits, to even changing and going out and open up businesses. I've had others that have come in and brought big real estate projects because they've now believed in themselves and have stopped setting the sights that they can't, and really just changing their minds so that they no longer come from a point that I can't, but now become resourceful to the narrative of not that I can't, but how can I?
We're speaking with Jason Yarusi, managing member at Yarusi Holdings. Jason, is there anything I've not asked that you'd like to add?
Oh, you've asked a lot of fun questions. I would say that you come here and you listen to Brian to really find habits, rituals, principles of others that have been successful. And the worst you can do is come listen to Brian give you all this great advice and not take a step of action tomorrow. Because we can learn all we want, but it's the action and the implementation that's going to get us the life that we deserve to have.
Jason, how can people get in contact with you?
Sure. So you can find our podcast, Live 100 Podcast with Jason Yarusi on all podcast platforms, or go to yarusiholdings.com. You can find everything about our real estate investment firm.
Jason, thank you very much for joining us today on the BCF ORG podcast, The Business of Business.
Thanks, Brian.
My sincere thanks to Jason Yarusi for joining us today. Managing the performance of your company is one of the most important things you do as a leader. This podcast is on YouTube and over 20 podcast directories. Subscribe or follow wherever you get your podcast. In search, type BCF ORG. Be sure to leave a space between BCF and ORG. If you'd like to reach out to me for business consulting or with any questions, comments, ideas, or potentially be a guest like Jason, please go to bcforg.com. There's a red Contact Us button in the middle of the homepage. All the podcasts are available by clicking on the website podcast page in the reference bar. These podcasts will be released the first and third Tuesday each month. In the next episode, 96, our guest will be Jim Bishop, discussing executive leadership growth. In business, running a successful, profitable business is the ultimate scorecard. You are never done and can always be better. It tends to be more fun than work, frustrating at times, but can be very rewarding. From BCF ORG Corp., I'm Brian Fisher, wishing you the best. Thanks.